Hey, it's my hand. Judd, Zulgad, Andrew Krammer, 1500 ESPN. Thanks for coming to the website, 1500ESPN.com. Andrew, of course, has been covering Vikings training camp throughout, which has now moved back to practices at Winter Park here in Eden Prairie. We're right across the street. And Andrew, I guess the big story now is preseason game number 3. We sort of joke about it, but this is the most important preseason game. No veterans, really no one of significance, will play in week 4 against the Titans at the Metrodome. So the Vikings Sunday night will play the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco, and that's where we're going to see the offense. That's where we're going to see the first team defense play the first half and maybe even into the third quarter. Tell me, just how important is it that we see something from this offense? Adrian Peterson's going to play, and we all understand that Adrian is a Pro Bowl player. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's great. But how important is it to see something from this passing game? Because we talked about this after the Buffalo game, preseason game number 2. We saw nothing.
It truly is. We need to see a breath of life from this offense because it was so terrible in the first 2 games. Obviously, only got the 2 snaps in the first game, but since Peterson's actually going to be out there, maybe it'll give a little room for a guy like Greg Jennings, who has only caught 1 pass in 2 preseason games from Christian Ponder. And who knows what the San Francisco 49ers are going to do? Maybe they won't even stack the box against Peterson, knowing it really doesn't matter what he does.
Right.
We want to see if they want to see if maybe Ponder can actually beat him with the arm. So, and that's what Vikings fans need to see. You need to see, can he actually go out there and control a game with Peterson in the backfield? And we only expect him to maybe play 1 or 2 series, Peterson that is. And then Ponder
needs.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to play at all. But and then Ponder will go easily into the third quarter with the starting receivers and the starting offensive line.
You talked to Greg Jennings earlier today, a story at 1500ESPN.com. I think he talked to the assembled media out here. An interesting quote I thought from him, basically paraphrasing, saying, we can't be as bad as we were against Buffalo. It's interesting already because to me that means something, because he saw something that concerned him, which is a lack of continuity, a lack of being in sync. Keep in mind, the point I've been trying to make is they have OTAs, they have mini camps, they have training camp. There's no excuse for the offense to look as bad as it did on Friday night in Buffalo, and I think in his comments, Greg Jennings reflected that.
No, he really did. And he's even looked frustrated in practices recently where Christian Ponders isn't connecting, throwing it behind him, throwing it over him, not connecting on that timing. That timing is still not there. And Greg Jennings has shown that, whether he's talking to Coach George Stewart, just you can tell by his hand motions and the way he's talking after those kind of plays happen. But he talked today about that and about how in the preseason games the timing wasn't there, the rhythm wasn't there. He said we need to get this thing on the right track, the right train, and get it moving. And I think if he doesn't see that in Game 3, you might hear him be a little bit more vocal about it.
And it will be interesting if they come out in Game 3 and look bad and look sloppy and the passing game's not good and Peterson's okay, but the rest of this offense looks mediocre to average or below that. It's going to be very interesting to see what the reaction is, because then, like I said, no one's going to play in week 4, and then you open the season at Detroit. So if we don't see something in week 3 of the preseason against the 49ers, and I realize it might not be a lot, but even a little glimpse of hope, it's going to be very interesting to see what the attitude, what the mood is like out here, because at that point you're thinking to yourself, okay, we're basically done with dress rehearsals. Now we're going to go into a regular season game on the road, and I don't care who you're playing. It's on the road, it's regular season, and we don't know what we've got. That becomes a concern.
It really does, because if they don't show anything in Game 3, you can do anything in this third game, and it will still be better than what this offense has done the first and second game. Whether it's score a touchdown, just get 5 first downs in a half, for crying out loud.
Just look in sync.
Just do something. So I think the fans are people who are going to bite on anything they see that is good, and they should, because you just need to see something. And like you said, they start 2 games on the road to start the regular season. There's going to be no favors handed to them. There's not going to be much luck thrown around there in the NFL. There never is. So they have to be executing, and they have to do it because they're not going to get a chance in that 4th week of the preseason.
Now, before we are done here, let's be positive for a second. The defense against Buffalo looked pretty good.
Yep.
Now, granted, Buffalo was without some key components, and Kevin Cobb, in my opinion, is awful. But that's not the point. The point is, if we're going to rag on the offense for its shoddy play, the defense looked good. Rhodes made a nice play on the Jamarcus Sanford pick. That unit actually looks pretty in sync at this point, and that's incredibly important. 2 things to keep in mind. Weak side linebacker and the secondary. And the secondary, I didn't think against the Bills looked too bad.
It really didn't. They didn't get to see that much pass defense, or they didn't get to defend that many passes because Kevin Cobb threw the ball 4 times in the first half. It was all C.J. Spiller.
Right.
So we got to see at least that run defense for the Vikings look somewhat cohesive.
But the corners have to come up then, too. I mean, you do have to have run support.
You really do, yeah. And guys like Xavier Rhodes can get that done. Josh Robinson has shown, too, he can come up and make a tackle. And then back there in the secondary, it's good to see the safeties get involved in the ball play, whether it's Jamarcus Sanford getting the interception or Harrison Smith blowing somebody up. So it was good to see that out of the secondary. That was maybe one positive you can take away from that game.
The 49ers, of course, with Kaepernick probably starting the game. I'm sure he will start the game on Sunday night. Will show the Vikings absolutely nothing, which leads them to go into Detroit against Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson, and then go to Chicago against Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall. And I don't care how bad you think those teams are, the defense will be severely challenged in those first two games. That secondary is going to be in for quite the challenge, and we will find out just where Josh Robinson is too in terms of him scooting inside, because it does look like he's going to start at that left corner for now. Rhodes won't start. I think Rhodes eventually will, but right now Robinson starts at that left corner and scoots inside, and that's where we're going to find out how well the Vikings have replaced Antoine Winfield.
And those are huge shoes to fill too, especially for a guy like Josh Robinson. People forget he's only in his second year. He's really young. He only has 1 year ahead of Xavier Rhodes. He's 1 year behind Chris Cook. This entire secondary in terms of corners is severely young. So great test out of the gate with Detroit, with Chicago. It'll be good to see how they respond.
Chris Cook is the long tooth in terms of the cornerbacks. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Chris Cook is your most experienced guy, and he hasn't played because of injuries and off-field issues more than 10 games in one season. He's Andrew Krammer. I'm Judd Zulgad. Thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com. Check again soon for another Vikings-related video, and read his coverage too, 1500ESPN.com. You can hear me with Dubé at 9 to 1 on weekdays. Thanks for watching, and here's my finger again, because I'm too lazy to edit.